It is 1 p.m. Pacific time for those that are coming in from elsewhere. A couple of housekeeping things, as Lauren Smith would say. I'm going to welcome you. And for those who have not been here before, Mike Hogan did quite a presentation for us last week, and he's repeating the presentation again this week. Okay, there will be a couple of things. If you have not already done so, if you could change your name, if you have any like short nicknames, if you could change it to your full name and your location, it helps us with identification. So if you go onto your picture, the top right corner, there's 3 dots. If you put your mouse over it, you can change your name there. Okay. All meetings are recorded. If you do not wish your image to be used, please turn off your video. Okay, that's my official statement there, so everybody knows. Audio, you will all be muted during Mike's presentation, except Mike, of course. During the presentation, and you will not have the ability to unmute yourself until after he's finished his presentation, and you can ask questions at that time. What else can I tell you? If you have any questions for Mike for the end, if you send them in chat to me, we can address those before we open up the audio. Okay, and I guess that's about it. Other than this is the first of, we'll say, many meetings. On Thursdays, the meetings will continue at Thursday at 1 p.m. and they will be covering different topics. Our first topic will be about our image, what we want to present to everybody. And you use the same information that you've done to log into this meeting. Okay, now, without much more ado, Brian Elmer.
Hello to everyone, and I want to say thank you sincerely for participating in our Zoom session today. On Thursday afternoon, our presenter Mike Hogan of Nebraska gave us an absolutely excellent talk on the subject of marketing. And today's session is going to largely repeat that presentation, and then a question period will follow. Now, anticipation is that our social recreation is poised to see substantial interest after the pandemic. That's because people have been socially starved in avoidance of COVID-19, and our dance forms are ideal for a return to social interaction. I'm encouraged. The BC Square and Round Dance Federation, by the way, embraces square, round, clog, and contra dancing, and we do have member clubs in each. In readiness to prepare for what might just be a groundswell of interest at all levels of organization, club, regional association, federation, and society, we need to learn how to properly market the dance instruction that we're selling. So this Zoom platform is certainly very useful as a way to explore that. Regarding what motivated these sessions, it was on February 13th that the United Square Dancers of America organization, USDA for short, sometimes I get confused with the US Department of Agriculture, but they presented our special guest, Mike Hogan, in a Zoom marketing session. And having participated in that and being so impressed with his presentation as your Square Up BC Marketing Initiative chairperson, I asked Mike to do not 1, but 2 sessions with us, and we're very grateful to him for agreeing to it. So Mike, I know that you will tell our audience about yourself, so let me turn this session over to you with absolute great appreciation for your participation a second time.
Well, you're welcome, Brian, and thanks for setting the bar so high, my friend. We'll see how this goes. All right, let's see if I can share my screen. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
All right, good. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. I hope I give you some excitement about the future of square dancing and can help at least a little bit with some of the research that I'm seeing in my real job and how it relates to the square dance business or the square dance activity. So let me just tell you a little bit about me, because there are a few of you that are on here that I have met, probably at a national convention or something like that. But I just want to give you a little background on myself so that you know that who's this guy from Nebraska that just, suddenly decided to talk to you. So here's my background as a square dance caller. I've been a square dance caller for 45 years, right here in Omaha. I know it says La Vista, that's the suburb that I'm in. I'm currently serve as the vice chairman of Caller Lab, and I serve on the Caller Lab Board of Governors. So I'm very active in that leadership organization. I've also served until recently as the chairman of their marketing committee. As a caller, I travel extensively throughout the United States. I've called in 35 or 36 states so far over those 45 years. And I think what most people lose track on me is I'm also a local caller. I have a club here in Omaha that I've called for continuously for 42 years. So I get the vision of a lot of things that are going on in square dancing all over the country. And then I still have the perspective of what it's like running a local club. So that's my square dance calling background. This is me with a tie, my professional background. So this is why I get asked a lot to talk about marketing things. I've been in the marketing industry for 30 years. I've been a business manager, a controller, an account executive, a general sales manager, and a station manager. Now, those are primarily in the radio field. Then I took a slight jaunt out of the radio side and was a general manager for a full service automotive focused advertising agency called Rutledge Integrated Marketing, and the general manager of Square One Digital Marketing Services. So a lot of experience with a lot of different kinds of media. And today I serve as a market president for iHeartMedia. And iHeart is North America's largest audio company, but we go a lot farther than just broadcast radio stations. We cover just about every kind of digital aspect that you could possibly fathom. For example, just to give you an idea of a crazy one-off, if you have a television ad, I actually have the ability to put your television ad on my son's PlayStation that he has to watch before he can sign on to play games with buddies of his from all over the world. So the whole marketing landscape, from broadcast to anything and everything in the digital space, we handle that. So that gives you a little background on what I've done for a living now for almost as long as I've called square dances, but not quite. I started calling it 13. So I've got a lot of history with the square dance activity. Okay. So originally this, as Brian said, this came from a presentation that I gave to the USDA. I have not modified it much at all for your presentation, other than, for the most part, I grabbed the logo for your federation and changed that. So here we go. A problem well stated is half solved. We obviously know that square dancing has lots of problems right now. We love it, but clearly there's some issues going on. So I want to first talk about leadership. I know all of you today that are on this fall into that leadership category. You may be the president of your local club, or you may be the president of your local association. You may be a caller or a round dance leader. But the fact is that we all kind of fall into that leadership bucket. So what I want to do is I want to take today's presentation and put it out of the mode of square dance clubs and that kind of thing, and put it in the mode of business and running businesses. So in our leadership, in any business, someone has to have a vision for the future. Where's our company going? How are we going to get there? What do we see it looking like in 5 years or 10 years? Who gets to make those important decisions? Who recognizes challenges and who has the authority to act and solve those challenges? Our business model of square dancing is a bit complicated in that regard, because pretty much everybody that participates, even from a leadership role, is a member of a multitude of organizations. No one has ultimate authority over, frankly, much of anything. And it's all volunteer work, which is wonderful that everybody volunteers, but it's really difficult. You know, if this was Ford Motor Company, there's a chief executive officer at Ford Motor Company that says, this is what our logo is going to look like. Everyone will use this logo. This is, you know, these are the models that we're going to produce, et cetera. In our case, we don't have that type of a structure. So it becomes a little more challenging. So today, I'm going to ask you to take on the role of president of square dancing. And by that, I mean, I want you to look at this business like basically this is your one and only livelihood. It's your business. It has to succeed. And if it doesn't succeed, you won't be able to make your mortgage payment next year. So when you think about it from that standpoint, some of the things that I'm going to talk about, hopefully will make more sense to you. Okay. So how's business right now? We know that we're getting smaller crowds. Demand is down. Clubs are smaller. Dances are smaller. Festivals are smaller. Our customer base, that's all those wonderful people that come to our dances. Well, they're not able to dance as often as they used to. We have a declining dancer population, and that's primarily due to age reasons and health reasons. It's also due to the lack of being able to get new generations and massive numbers of new people to get involved in our activities. So we'll talk more about that. Let's see, dance venues. Dance venues are becoming more and more expensive. Callers and cuers are expensive. So I give the example that in 2019, I got my tax returns done. I called about 100 dances-ish in 2019, and I lost $2,500. So that means that every time that a dancer paid 7, 8, 9, whatever it was that they paid to dance for me, it cost me $25 to call for them. So while it does sound like callers and cuers might be expensive, I think we have a lot of expenses as well. So just keep that in mind. And then we have a declining caller and cuer population. Along with the declining in the population of square dancers, we're also losing callers and cuers. Dancers don't want to hold office. I know you're all on mute, but if I said raise your hand when you have trouble, if you've had trouble getting somebody in your club to run for an office, I imagine most of you would be raising your hands. We can't get people to take lessons for some reason. We can't get a large enough crowd to pay our bills. And the bottom line is there aren't enough of you, our current square dancers, and that's a big challenge for us. So we're going to try and try and take a look at it. But now we have a new problem, and that problem came about with COVID-19, the coronavirus. So here's what we know about the coronavirus. It shut down your businesses. I don't know if any of the clubs in Canada are dancing yet. At least I know you're doing some Zoom dances, and I can still see one face, which was Lauren's, and he's shaking his head no. I know that Canada has done a great job with trying to control the virus, but I know part of that job is that they've been shut down. I work with some callers in Canada through Caller Lab, and they're not able to come in for our executive committee meetings or our regular meetings. And so it's been a challenge. Our clubs are shut down. What we don't know is that we don't know exactly when our businesses are going to reopen, when we're going to be able to get back into our halls and start having face-to-face dances again. I think that time is right around the corner. I think it's coming, but we don't have the crystal ball that says exactly when. There's a lot of discussion that we're going to lose a certain percentage of our square dance population who've just basically taken the last year off of dancing and probably won't return. They found another hobby, or maybe they're still a little bashful or a little shy about coming back until they really feel good that the coronavirus is dead and gone. So we don't know. We also believe, and I know this, or at least from Caller Lab membership, that we're going to lose callers and viewers. So that's stuff that we know. So let's talk about marketing. And I want to put it in terms of marketing versus promoting. Because when I was asked about this, I was asked about promoting. And I want you to know that, that there's a lot more to marketing than just running ads, doing advertising, doing promotions. And I want to talk about some of that. So promotions are a set of activities that communicate the product, brand, or service that's offered. Whoops, I did that the other day. Pardon me. Here we go. So it's the goal of the promotions then is to increase awareness, create interest, generate sales, and create brand loyalty. And I know we're all interested in increasing awareness and creating interest and generating sales and creating brand loyalty. So promotion is one of the elements of marketing. The others are, well, it's included. Here are the four of them: product, price, place, and promotion. So product, if Burger King's Whopper sandwich, I assume you have Burger Kings in Canada. If Burger King's Whopper sandwich didn't sell anymore, they would eliminate that product and move to a new product, as an example. Price is about charging enough, getting enough revenue to cover expenses, and profit if you're a for-profit business, which square dancing is not. Place is how do I get it? If I wanted to dance, where can I get it? We used to have around Nebraska, we had square dancing in every tiny little town all around Omaha. And now we don't. Now I have to travel farther to find dances. The same thing is true with people who might want to learn how to dance. It's not as readily available, obviously, as it used to. And then promotion is all of those marketing things: a website, a video ad, an audio ad, Facebook, all of those pieces. So let's talk about why a consumer buys something in the first place. There are exactly two reasons why a consumer would buy something. And they are, they want it or they need it. It's really that simple. And sometimes there's a mixture of the two, but the point here is that there used to be a car that was manufactured in Yugoslavia called the Yugo. And the Yugo was about $4,000 to buy a brand new Yugo. It was stripped down, bare bone, tiny little engine, cheap, but it would get you from A to B. So if in traveling, the only thing we wanted for a vehicle was the ability to get from A to B, Yugo would still be around. The need portion fits that. Another need example is we just had the furnace replaced at my office. I don't want to buy a new furnace. I had to. It's a need. We need it. The want piece of it is the reason that instead of driving a Yugo, I drive a Buick LaCrosse. I want a bigger car that's pretty comfortable, has a lot of bells and whistles that I feel very safe in. So typically when someone buys something out of a want, we tend to fall a little bit into that category, into the want category. Okay. This is the marketing funnel. And I don't know how many of you actually own or run your own businesses, but this is exactly the same funnel that you should be thinking about for your business, just like we would for square dancing. So here's what we typically have done when we've tried to get people to take classes. We've got a class starting, let's say, in September. So in August, we decide that we're going to do some things to get out in front of people and invite them to come take the class. So maybe we put an ad in the newspaper, we distribute flyers, we send an email out to friends inviting them. We do whatever it is that we do to try and get people to come to take our class. And an example of that I use a lot is doing a float in a parade. So I've had some local clubs that have done floats in parades. And it takes some work to do that. You put a float together, you got to get the trailer, you got to get the truck, you got to get a generator, a caller, dancers, maybe flyers to hand out as you're going through. And initially their expectation is, I'm going to do a float and a parade and then start my class in September. And a bunch of people that saw us in the float are going to come to the parade, or going to come to the to our lessons. And the fact is that all of these, hey, please come to our class pieces are the recruitment part, and that relates to the bottom part of the marketing funnel. This is where someone has already done some form of consideration and evaluation on their own about our square dancing activity and has made the decision that, yes, I will go and take the class. This is typically what most clubs do. And in many cases, businesses do it this way. And what they fail to realize is that they have to promote first. So things like public exhibitions, beginner parties, articles that speak positively about square dancing, or just you visiting with your friends about what your hobby is and how much you like it, without necessarily inviting them to a class. That's promoting. Promoting is what starts the top of the marketing funnel, which is awareness. We need massive awareness so that a smaller number will actually consider it. An even smaller number will do an evaluation of square dancing, which means evaluating means they're probably going to go to a website to try and find out more about it. Or if they have a friend that square dances, they're going to start to ask questions about it. Or they might go to a beginner party where there's no obligation to take a class or anything. They just want to try it. Think of that like you might test driving a car before you buy it. They want to experience it, see if they think it's something they'll like before they actually make the purchase. So we too often get the cart in front of the horse, when instead it should look this way. We should be doing the public exhibitions, beginner parties. I mean, here's a beginner party idea. Even though we're in small groups, and I know you got to get a caller that's going to play along with this, but why not invite 5 couples or 10 singles, doesn't matter what the composition is, that live in your neighborhood to come over on a Saturday night. You're going to do a barbecue, so everybody gets fed. And as part of that evening, you're going to clear out your garage and you're going to have your caller teach them some basic square dance stuff in your garage. What a great way to mix social in with the chance to experience the activity. They clearly know now that you're a square dancer, if they didn't obviously already know, because most of us wear it on our shoulders. But that gives them a chance to experience it. So you got to start in the marketing. In marketing, you got to start with the top of the marketing funnel, which is awareness, to drive consideration, to drive evaluation that eventually ends in a purchase. And clearly we start with lots and lots of people in the awareness phase, and we get a smaller number that make the purchase, usually a considerably smaller number that make the purchase. Most of the time we're starting out in the purchase spot in that marketing funnel, and people just say no because they don't know enough about what it is that we're asking them to buy. And specifically, they don't understand how square dancing fits a want or a need that they have. Once they make that connection, recruiting them becomes dramatically easier. So in pre-COVID times, we offered square dance lessons. So why didn't people flock to our lessons when they were offered? We talked about this before, lack of awareness. Many of you have had other people say square dancing is like the best kept secret. I didn't know square dancing went on in our communities, had no idea. Poor image. Most people experienced what they called square dancing in grade school. And I did as well. And I know that even today, if they're getting square dancing in grade school, it's part of a class, usually in their phys ed class. And it's primarily still done with a gym teacher who knows nothing about square dancing, who's using some material that was probably produced in the 1950s. And so it's not an accurate representative or representation of what square dancing is today. And then there's lack of fit. Square dancing is for old folks. I can see about 6 of you. Raise your hand if you think that's true. Square dancing is for old folks. All right, of the ones I can see, I don't see any hands. But I can, when everybody was coming in, I could see everybody's faces. Ladies and gentlemen, we are an activity that older people participate in. Now, I know we'd love to have teenagers, and know we'd love to have people in their 30s and 40s. But for them to fit in, they're going to need to have a number of them in their age group to fit. I'm going to refer to the Square Dance Marketing Manual, the Color Lab Square Dance Marketing Manual, many times in this presentation. There is a section in there that talks about fit. So as an example, I have a lady that I worked with, I still work with her actually, for several years, who came to my beginner night. She danced, and she's into dance. She actually teaches older people how to do tap, jazz, and ballet. So she loves dance. When she left, she told me later that she absolutely had a ball. And I asked her, well, then why didn't you come try a class? And she said, it's simple, Mike. Everyone there was old. I don't fit in. That's my friend Robin Putnam. And at the time, Robin Putnam was 58 years old. So there's a fit problem. All right. So really, the real reason that people don't flock to our lessons is what I just said. They haven't associated square dancing as a product that satisfies a need or a want. So the solution is to promote the product now and recruit the dancers later. All right. So I'm going to talk about a healthy business base, give you an idea what that looks like. And actually, Lauren, when you were talking about the advanced and challenge groups dancing teams and probably doing it more, and that they do it quite often, this is going to fit when I get to it, and I'll explain it, okay? So most companies, their business customer base looks like this. There's a large base of infrequent customers. Once in a while, they buy from them. There's a mid-sized base of frequent customers, people that maybe buy from them somewhat often. Maybe that's where they'd prefer to go. And then there's super users, people that are there all the time. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I don't know if you have Olive Gardens in Canada. I imagine you do. It's a big chain restaurant. It's a sit-down restaurant. And I fall into the category of the large base of infrequent customers. At best, I maybe go to the Olive Garden twice a year. My daughter and son-in-law love the place. They're a once a month customer. And there are some who literally go to Olive Garden once a week. And I've actually talked to Olive Garden managers and validated this. I talked to a lot of restaurateurs, and they say this is exactly what their model looks like. They've got a big base of people that come once or twice a year, few people that only come one time, but there's a large number of them. And then they have people that kind of fall in love and come pretty frequently, and the crazy super users that are there all the time. Since our activity is more of a hobby participation type of activity, I'm going to use the example of soccer. So in Europe, 30 years ago, soccer was huge, and it's still huge all over Europe. They had competitive soccer leagues, they had the professional leagues, all of that. But in the United States, and probably in Canada, there wasn't much soccer going on at all. I know when I went to high school in the late 80s or late 70s, we didn't have a boys soccer team or a girls soccer team. So what happened is the professionals from Europe, as we moved this activity over into the United States, began recreational soccer leagues, and you started to get lots of players and lots of leagues. My children started playing soccer at 4. I coached soccer for 10 years and haven't got a clue how to play it, I guess. But anyway, so they ended up developing recreational soccer, and that developed into competitive soccer. So every high school has a boys soccer team and a girls soccer team. There are, like in baseball, how you've got rec leagues, there's also competitive leagues. All of that happens in the soccer world. And today the United States has several professional soccer clubs that are competing with the European soccer clubs. But that's your base of what your customers should look like. Now let me show you what Square Dancing's base looks like. We have infrequent customers, people that go a couple times a year, and a small number of them. Most of them, they're either going to a community dance type of thing, a beginner event. Maybe they dance some basics, or maybe they're a member of your club that, you know, their level of participation is 3 or 4 dances a year, and that's about all that they do. We have a very small base of that. The next level is fairly frequent customers, meaning this would be in my club. I have a mainstream club here in Omaha. Joe and Sandy Jack. You guys don't know them all, so I can use their name. Love Joe and Sandy. They've been in my club for 25 years. They dance about half of our regular club dances a year, and they don't go visit other clubs. That's it. They dance 6, 8 dances a year, and that's what they do. And they dance just fine because they've been doing it forever, but they're not going to hold office, and they're not going to recruit new people for us. And there are a lot of, at least there's a bigger number of somewhat frequent dancers. Then you got the very frequent ones. So these are the folks that belong to your club and go visit other clubs and go to your local communities festival and maybe take in a square dance weekend, or go to, in Nebraska, go to the Nebraska State Convention, and possibly once in a while we'll go to the Nationals. And then finally, you've got really frequent customers. And I said advanced and challenged. This is probably true for a lot of mainstream and plus dancers too. I know it was 30 years ago, because 30 years ago, we went dancing 5 nights a week. And the only reason we didn't go 6 is because we couldn't find a dance close enough to fill that 6th night. So I know some of you have lived through that, but that's what our business model of customers looks like. And the whole base at the bottom is missing. So, and that is frankly where our new dancers come from. And we're missing that model. So, oh, and Lauren, what I was starting to say when you made the comment about the advanced and challenge groups, that you're doing multiple advanced and challenge dances on Zoom with people from all over the world. So as I look at participation in Zoom dances, what I'm seeing is the basic and mainstream dancers are doing very little Zoom dancing. The plus dancers are doing more Zoom dancing, some a little bit, some a lot. And the advanced and challenge dancers are doing a lot. It fits that same diamond that I just showed you. Okay. So in pre-COVID times, when we held square dance lessons, typically half of our lessons didn't finish lessons. Half of our listeners didn't finish the class. And then of those that did, typically half of them didn't stay longer than 2 years. So we got them in the door and we got them into class. And half of them said halfway into class, this is not for me, and I'm out. And then the other half finished, and within 2 years, they said, this is not for me, and I'm out. Now, why? We have a product problem. It's not a recruitment problem at that point. It's a product problem. We got them to class. They didn't stay. We got them through class and got them started dancing on the dance floors with everybody, and they didn't stay. Now, some people leave for lots of reasons other than they didn't get what they came for. But as you guys know, square dancing is available anywhere in the country, anywhere in Canada, so to speak. You might be in a small town and have to drive 40 miles, but you can find square dancing anywhere if you want it. So, what essentially what I'm telling you is what these beginners are coming for, and what they get are different things. I've taught a lot of people over the years. We do multi-cycle in Omaha. I've taught 4 beginner classes a year for many years in a row. Some were very tiny, some were larger. And for what it's worth, by comparison, I'll give you a comparison. Des Moines is a city that's 2.5 hours east of me. Omaha and Des Moines are almost identical in size. Because we've been teaching classes 4 times a year, plus one other club that's also been doing a couple of times a year, we've managed to keep 7 square dance clubs in the Omaha area. Des Moines, a market the exact same size, has 1. So multiple times a year of teaching is good. Being able to do that multiple times a year and giving them what they expect helps to retain them. So here's what new dancers want when they come to take class. They want to learn how to dance. They don't want to be in perpetual lessons. They want to learn and they want to go dance. They want to be entertained. They want to feel welcome. They want to have fun. That makes sense, but is that really what we're giving them? So here's the scenario. And I gotta move this screen around a little bit. Okay, so here's the scenario. Mainstream beginners must sign up for 20 weeks of lessons offered only once a year on Thursday nights from 7 to 9. Pay for it all up front and successfully complete those lessons, learning 67 calls from a multitude of positions and applications before being allowed to attend a local club dance. And they are usually encouraged to take the next set of lessons before they finish the first. And then once they complete lessons, get this, congratulations, you've finished the class, you can start dancing. They're asked to dance at an unfamiliar location to a different caller who calls faster than they're used to, using more complicated choreography than they're used to, with mostly strangers who are not all that tolerant of their slowness and lack of efficiency at executing calls, where then they can only dance 10 of the 26 pieces of music that are played, but they're asked to pay the same at the door as everyone else. Really? Does that sound, if you look at it from your new customer's perspective, does that sound like an inviting position for them to put them in? And the same thing holds true when you go to Plus, because I'll pick on California. I go to call in California quite a bit, and I love those folks. But here's the deal in California. Almost every club in California, the starting program is Plus instead of mainstream. And so beginners are asked to sign up for a full year of class, learning 95 calls. And we're expecting these dancers to be able to understand a swing through. So Lauren, you'll get this as a caller, and there's probably some other callers on here, but a swing through can be done from a mini wave, which is 2 people, or a wave of 3 dancers, which is, well, 3 people, or a standard ocean wave of 4 people, or a tidal wave, which has 8 people in it. And a swing through by definition is those who can turn half by the right, and then those who can turn half by the left. And we're expecting these beginners to know the boys part or the girls part, or let's call it the in part or the center part. And they're supposed to be able to recognize if they're in a right-handed or a left-handed wave and which hand is their right hand to start with. So I'm going to put them into a tidal wave. I know this is over some dancers. I'm going to put them in a tidal wave. That's a right-handed tidal wave. And I'm going to call a left swing through, which means they have to understand that that tidal wave is made of 2 4-person ocean waves that are side to side, and that because they are in a right-handed ocean wave, and I called left swing through, that they start with the left hand, but only the center 2 of each of those 4 start, because those ocean waves don't connect in the middle. Then everybody turn half by those that can turn half left, and then everybody else turn half by the right. And our expectation is they're going to be in class long enough that they can learn all of that and be able to execute it quickly and easily on a dance floor. That's not what these people came to learn. They came to take a few classes and learn how to dance and go out on a dance floor and dance with a partner and have fun. So we have really complicated what we expect them to know. And again, if they're dancing plus, they still don't do rounds. They still don't get all of the dances, or, all of the nights dancing that everybody could potentially participate in. Whew. All right. So let me give you history. This is Mike Hogan history. I've been around enough to know that it fits about everywhere I go. I learned how to dance in 1976. In 1976, about half the clubs in the Nebraska area were still teaching lessons in 12 nights. So in the 60s and 70s, clubs were 12 to 15 squares in size, maybe bigger in some bigger markets. Our festivals were 25 to 100 squares, national conventions, 35,000 attendance. And we taught, most of the clubs still taught what we call the 50 basics, 12 weeks, a little over four calls per night. Now today, our club dances are 3 to, gosh, if you get 12 squares, that's huge. And I don't know what club sizes dances are in Canada, but as you're spread out, I'm assuming they're not dramatically different from what I'm showing on the screen. Festivals are 8 squares, and 8 squares used to be a small mainstream dance. Today it's a festival. National conventions, 4,000 or less. And we're asking our beginners, whether it's depending on if it's mainstream or plus, to learn either 67 or 95 calls in anywhere from 20 to 50 weeks. So the reason that we're doing a little over 3 to less than 2 calls a night when we're teaching them is because we're trying to make sure that they know how to do a left swing through from a right-handed tidal wave. We're spending so much time working on that degree of understanding, and it's way too much for someone who said, okay, you've talked me into it, I'm going to bring my partner and we're going to try square dancing. Okay, so it's the increase in complicated choreography, which is requiring longer time, and longer teach time means that it's a longer time before the listeners get what they came for. So, bold statement. Your new customer came, tried it, left, and now you need to find more new customers who will come, try it, and leave. So all the good promotion that we do to get people there is not going to solve our retention problem, because the product has a problem. Okay, so here's how this happened. I'm going to try and do, it's long. I'm going to try and make it the Reader's Digest version as best that I can. Basically, the mainstream program and the basic program, the difference is 19 calls. So the stair step from basic to mainstream is a small step. Lessons went, so we went from teaching 50 basics, or now there's 48 basics, to teaching mainstream. And lessons went from 12 nights to 20 nights. And then dancers. So here's one of the things I want you to get in your head. Almost every club, not every, there are definitely some caller run clubs, but almost every club that I deal with and every federation that I deal with is ran by dancers. And that's okay as long as the dancers have the ability to think of this not in a selfish way, but in a business-minded way. So our tenured dancers wanted more. So we decided that, and they're the ones that are making the decisions based on what they want. And in the process, they're also getting older. So beginners found it harder to learn in a longer time before they got what they came for. Callers introduced more calls to entertain tenured dancers. If you've been dancing 10 years, give me something new, give me something different. I get it. I understand why you'd want that. Excuse me. So we started introducing new calls. We had experimentals. Every third tip, every night was a workshop. That kind of stuff happened. I lived it. 10 years dance, and then the tenured dancers who oversaw running the clubs and hiring the callers, callers introduced more complicated choreography to entertain the tenured dancers. Because I've danced long enough now that I know the difference between a swing through and a left swing through. So use some of that material to entertain me. And nothing wrong with that, except that now the dancer that has just joined your class for the first time has a journey where now it became 20 weeks of class with a higher expectation of call knowledge and execution. And the tenured dancers, acceptance of beginners, and I know that some of you have experienced this. Their acceptance, they had, I'll read it so I can quit messing it up. Tenured dancers' acceptance of beginners who couldn't keep up with them waned. And I know you've experienced that, where there's been people on your dance floor and they've gotten square and you said, oh no, please don't get in the square with George and Linda, because George and Linda aren't going to like it. I don't know if there's anybody out there named George and Linda. I just pulled those names. So now the journey for the beginner dancer became 25 weeks of class, because they needed more time to learn the calls better so that they were better accepted on the dance floor. And beginners found it harder to learn and even longer before getting what they came for. And it continued. Experienced dancers, long-term experienced dancers are still running the clubs, hiring the callers and making the decisions of what they based on what they want. Tenured dancers got older, lack of beginners, and the average age got older. So the answer, let's add 28 more calls and start dancing plus. Great. I did this. This was back in the mid 80s. I taught plus lessons to mainstream dancers, and I taught several of them. And I made some good money teaching plus. And I started a plus club. And I lost track, but not entirely. I still continued to teach beginner classes. But in many areas of the country, mainstream was gone and was replaced with plus. And it's because the dancer, the experienced dancer, the long-term dancer, that's what they want. And they're running the clubs. And so they're booking what they want. And I get that, until now we've gone so far away from remembering what the beginner dancer wants. And that's to come, take a few classes, go to a dance, be entertained, and have fun. So anyway, that's kind of how we got here. So what we have now is you've let your high frequency customer make all the decisions about running your company based solely on what they want, instead of what is good for your business, and your customer base has eroded because of it. So I'm also want to talk money. And this is me going out on a limb here, and I've got criticism for it. And I don't care. Sometimes you just got to be bold. So the high frequency customers making all the decisions and running your company based on solely what they want instead of what's good for your business. So here's the thing. It's human nature to not want to pay more. Clearly, I don't want to pay any more than I have to for anything. So if I'm the customer, and I mentioned the car that I drive, if I'm the customer and I actually get to make all the decisions for the Buick dealership where I bought my car, even though I'm the customer, I would have paid $10,000 for my $40,000 car, because I get to make the decisions, and I told them that's what I'm going to pay for it, and they got to live with it. So that obviously doesn't work. So we don't have a marketing fund because our customers didn't plan for one. And we don't have a marketing fund because our customers don't want to pay for one. Customers who run the business, make the decisions, no longer care where we dance. And that makes sense. We're us long-term dancers and callers, we're in love with the dance. We don't care if we dance in a garage. We don't care if we dance in a church basement. We really don't care where we dance. But our non-dancer friends that we want to bring in, they envision something different. They envision a dance hall. They envision something not called the church basement. And so one of the things that's happened in the last 15, 20 years is, as our dance population has grown older and fallen into the senior category, we've said, hot dog, let's dance at the senior center because we qualify, because we're old enough, and the rent is either cheap or free. And so we don't have to charge more at the dances. We can just dance at the senior center. Okay, I get that, but that is absolutely not where our recruits are expecting to dance at a senior center. If you want to say we're not old, don't dance at the senior center. I mean, that's an automatic connection. So so that's where a lot of clubs have gravitated to. And I already told you about the money thing. Okay, so here's the thing. If you want to attract dancers, and especially if you want to attract younger, and I don't mean 35, I mean if you want to attract 55 instead of 65, you're not going to attract 55-year-olds dancing at a senior center. They won't go there. They're not ready to say, okay, I've officially made it, I'm a senior. And if you dance at a senior center, that's what they have to accept to dance there. From the money side of it, if you went and signed up for ballroom lessons right now, just you and your partner, you would pay $600 for 10 lessons. $600. Now, I don't want us to charge $600 for 10 lessons. Don't get me wrong. But our non-dancing friends wouldn't think anything of paying 10 to 20 bucks a night for lessons. Wouldn't faze them a bit. In fact, when you tell them it's $5 or $6 a night for class, most of them are frankly quite surprised that that's all it is. So the money side of it, we have the ability to pay a caller and to pay for hall rent to teach. We don't have to have that many people. And then to retain them, bottom line is you got to give them what they came for. They got to be able to come and dance quickly. They got to be able to have fun, be welcome. All right. So these are things I believe very strongly in. Beginner lessons should take no more than 10 weeks. Beginner lessons that are offered should be offered several times a year. And this is part of marketing. The 10-week thing, they don't know how long it takes, but I don't think you should try to keep them in class longer than 10 weeks without then giving them the opportunity to just dance. Beginner lessons should be offered several times. That's about place. When can I get it? How often can I get it? I think at 5 weeks, you should start holding dances regularly that these people can participate in. That's not a learning environment. It's a social dance environment. I believe clubs should be established that regularly dance at the 10-week program. Offer easy to learn. You can do other easy to learn forms of dancing, line dances, mixers, and so forth. Decorate at every dance. Decorating takes time. Those of us that have danced for 25, 30 years and fallen in love with square dancing, we don't care that much about the decorations. It's nice, but it's not that big a deal. To that new dancer, they're expecting a party. So if you dance in the church basement, which kind of serves as their storage room, and so you shove all of the storage stuff to the side and make room on the floor to dance, that is exactly not the venue that those beginners intended to come and dance in. So decorate. I believe in a stage and in showmanship. I primarily believe in a stage. This isn't true. I believe in a stage because I think a stage gives the caller the best opportunity to actually connect with the dancers and read the floor and be able to entertain them. I also happen to be 5'6" on a tall day, so a stage is nice. They'd rather dance in a ballroom than a basement. We should charge more. Jeans are appropriate. Petticoats and cloth ties are a turnoff to potential dancers. Interestingly, I've found that younger dancers, especially the ladies, they gravitate to the square dance dress very shortly into class. All of a sudden, it's cool. It's just not cool when they're first thinking about taking the class. Callers should dress appropriate. And the last one talks about using different genres of music. So I want to give you an example of a bad dance venue. I live in Omaha. I work in Sioux City, Iowa, which is about an hour and 45 minutes north of my home. So in Sioux City, when I started calling, there were a dozen, maybe 10 to 12 clubs in the Sioux City market, a market of 120,000 people. And in there, the club members ran the clubs. And one day they came across an opportunity that was like a pot of gold for them. There was a local business that offered the square dance activity and round dance activity the opportunity to use their basement as a dance hall because they didn't need the space. And the rent for the basement was no charge. The only thing they wanted the dancers to do was keep it clean. They could decorate it. They could store their coffee stuff. They could do whatever they wanted to, no charge, sort of public outreach kind of thing. And all of the clubs in Sioux City altered their dance nights so that every club, square and round, could dance in the same hall. Sounds nice. It is a basement, cement floor, cinder block walls, kind of a low ceiling, but they did their best to decorate it, make it look nice. The sound wasn't great, but everybody danced there. And the reason they all danced there was because it was free. Great. Okay. There are no clubs in Sioux City, Iowa. No square dance clubs, no round dance clubs. There haven't been for several years now. And I don't think the place they danced was the only reason, but I think it had a major part. So now that I've told you about the hall, I'll tell you where it was. It was the basement of the waste management building. So they, not thinking as marketers, not thinking about brand, just said, it's free. So we're going to invite everybody to come to the basement of the garbage building to dance. Oh, well. Enough about venues. Okay, here's some things that I don't believe. I don't believe we should encourage new dancers to move to the next program. They'll find it if they want it, but I don't think that we 3 nights before they finish their mainstream dance or 5 nights before they finish their mainstream lessons are already telling them about the round dance class that's coming up or the plus lessons that are next, all of those kinds of things. We need to let them finish whatever the dance program is that we're teaching and let them dance it for a while. They'll find the next program because they have to fall in love with our activity before they want the next program. A guitar player learns enough chords that they can play Kumbaya around the fire pit when they're camping on the weekend. And that's about all they want to know. They don't want to stand on stage with Keith Urban and rip some amazing guitar licks. But we're asking them to do that. So I also don't believe that we should ask new dancers to be officers in a club for at least 3 years. At least 3 years. They need to get on the dance floor. They need to dance. They need to fall in love with the dance. They need to fall in love with the dancers. And once that happens, they'll realize that there's somebody that needs to kind of keep things organized. And then they'll be ready to be an officer. But don't do it. I've had graduates become president of the club, graduate in May, become president of the club in September, and no longer square dance the following May. So don't do it. And I've already told you, I don't think we should be dancing in senior centers. I think it's an image problem. Okay, so everything I've been telling you about just screams, Mike's preaching social square dance. Mike's preaching the social square dance initiative. I'm sure, I can't imagine that many of you haven't heard about the social square dance initiative. But what I want you to know is that's not what I'm talking about. Almost every single opinion that I just shared with you came from a speech that I made at Prairie Conclave in 2008, several years before the concept of SSD ever rolled around. But I will tell you that now that I've really done my homework on the SSD program, it is frankly the very product that I spoke about in 2008. Here's what it is. Oh, by the way, headlined by Jerry Story. I know you all know Jerry Story. It's 50 calls. It's 12 weeks of class. It's several new classes a year. The emphasis is on standard applications, not left swing throughs from right-handed tidal waves. It's where dancers are excited about dancing and can invite their friends who will be dancing within, I can't read what I wrote. Yeah, within a very short time. It's where the dancers enjoy each other's company, have fun, and have no responsibilities. It's where they can take a break from dancing if something in life gets in the way. and they can come back without having to feel intimidated or scared. They can enjoy dancing without dedication, or without dedicated or without dedicating a large portion of their time to being a student. Right now, if you're in California, we're inviting you to be a permanent student, and that's not why people come to Square Dance. And they're not pressured into climbing the staircase of programs. So what do they come for? Take a few lessons, be entertained, be welcomed, have fun. I'm telling you, SSD is built to deliver exactly what you're asking, what they are asking for. All right. Okay, back to our problem. Problem well stated is half solved. Now we know who the leadership is to some extent. Again, we don't have a CEO of Square Dancing. We don't have all of our organizations organized into one organization with elected leaders who get to make the decisions. We just don't have that. But here's what we do have. The leadership has to come from major organizations that could include the British Columbia Square and Round Dance Federation. Did I say that right? Let's go with it. And Collar Lab. And possibly other organizations. But clearly from the Collar side of this, Collar Lab is the most recognized, and Collar Lab manages the programs. The cool thing is the last few years, and to some extent, a little bit of me preaching it, and I think a lot of Jerry Story preaching it, we're really starting to look at the product from a different aspect, from the aspect of who do people who don't belong to Square Dancing want when they come to Square to learn Square Dancing. And then you got COVID. So a lot of people were asking me, oh my gosh, what's COVID going to do for our marketing? Essentially, it doesn't change marketing principles at all. The principles are the same. It's only the timing in which we execute those principles that could be changed from COVID. So since we don't know the availability of venues to hold classes, so classes are limited and possibly closed. I doubt anybody's been teaching any classes right now. There's a few around the country that I've heard of, and that's it. It's impossible to keep social distance when you're square dancing. We all know that. Current dancers fall into high risk categories due to age and underlying health issues, and prospects may have some safety concerns. Now, I know because most of our dancers do fall into an older age group that they're qualifying first to get vaccinated, and vaccinations are on the uprise. So I see somewhere in my window of time when we're all going to be able to be on the dance floor again. And I see it enough that I can say that it might be 2 months, it might be 4 months, it might be 6 months, but it's not going to be, it's definitely defined in that window of time somewhere. It's not 2 or 3 years from now, or maybe never, which is what the thought was potentially 3 or 4 months ago. So here's some advantages. Brian mentioned some of this. And I know this from the research that I do with the media company that I work for. Our prospects are anxious for life to get back to normal. Everyone's ready for life to get back to normal. We have much higher than normal desire and need for social interaction. And we're seeking out safe means of exercise. All of those kind of speak to what square dancing can offer. So let's talk about in marketing what you're gonna do from a timing standpoint and the message that you want to deliver. Okay. So the marketing of why square dance, that's the awareness piece. The ability, the why is the connection between what we offer with a want or a need of the people that we want to come and take lessons. So that's why. You can start telling the story about why square dance right now. Tell your story. You can, in it, until COVID is kind of gone, you can address safety. Speak to the customer's needs. And then this type of brand marketing can and should be taking place all the time. I'll give you an example. I realize I can't see all of your hands and you're on mute, but if I said, raise your hand if you researched tires today because you plan to buy tires anytime soon. The stat should be about 2% of you that are in the tire buying mindset right now. But ABC Tire and Brake, by the way, that's a fictitious business that I use when I'm training. ABC Tire and Brake is pretty easy from the name of the company to understand that they probably sell tires and they probably do repair of your car. I get that. It's a service and a product that doesn't necessarily need as much explanation as square dancing does, because when I say ABC Tire and Brake, I get it. I know what they do. But only 2% of the market is actually needing service work or brake or new tires at this time. Just the same, ABC Tire and Brake advertises year-round. And they do that because they have to be top of mind with the consumer, so that when that 2%, someone wakes up in the morning and goes, uh-oh, I'm going to have to get new tires. By then it's too late for them to have won the battle against their competition. They already need to have been there. They already need to have that business entity established in the mind of their consumer. They need to have already connected that if you need brakes, or tires, you should be buying them from ABC Tire and Brake. So that why square dance thing, the awareness part, that should happen all the time, round the clock. Now, we don't have gazillion dollars, but we should always be marketing who we are, what we have to offer, and making it connect with a non-dancer's needs. Okay. Now, the recruitment part, which is farther down that marketing funnel, is the when and how part. So set up your classes, and the exact date I don't know. I do know that people are going to be just clamoring to get out of the house and get out in the public and see people again. So set up your classes to start once your state and local CDC guidelines first allow for group gatherings. And I'd recommend that you start your class about 3 months after group gatherings with minimal restrictions are allowed. The reason I give it 3 months, I know you go like, oh, I want to hit it hot right now. It's okay if you want to hit it hot right now and you know that exact window in time, but there's going to be some skepticism initially, as that people are not going to want to just roll right out and jump. So there's got to be a spot in there where there's still some people that are going to hang back, but most people are like, okay, it's time to start living again. And I think that's about 3 months after we start to get the reduction in our CDC guidelines. So that's the timing. I don't have the crystal ball to tell you if that's 3 months or 4 months or 6 months from now, but let's say it's 9 months from now. If it's 9 months from now, when should we be marketing square dancing to introduce it to people and explain to them why it satisfies a need or a want that they have? You're on mute, so the answer is now. You have to build the awareness. You have to give people the chance to do a little investigation before they're going to take the class. You might as well do that while the COVID stuff is going away, so that once it's away, you start your class and they're ready to go. There's a sequential timing to that. Okay. So then at that point, the biggest change in the messages that you deliver in your marketing is just the addition of when and where. You're still talking about the connection. Then start inviting prospects to your class as soon as the date and location are set. So here's your marketing funnel. I want you to decide what tactics you're going to use. So now we're in the promotion piece, and tactics are what are you going to do to actually get the message out there? There are a ton of them. And keep in mind that the most important part of the marketing funnel is the awareness part, the top of the funnel. So All the tactics that are listed below are explained in detail in the Call Our Lab Square Dance Marketing Manual. At a minimum, I recommend the following tactics. Elevator pitches. Database. Lauren, you started out in our pre-conversation talking about this database of 300 dancers that you've collected as you've been doing your virtual advanced and challenge dances. So now you've got a bigger database of people to invite to your virtual dances. The exact same thing holds true when we want to invite people to take lessons. Start a database so you've actually got contact information for those people. Do public exhibitions because it builds awareness. Do special events like dance parties. It's the best way for a consumer to sample the product. Direct contact sales. This is word of mouth. Public activities listings. There are lots of online free public activities listings that you can get listed on. Public service awareness announcements. I deal with public service announcements all the time. Email signatures. We all do email. You all have a signature. You can include in your signature things like the logo and the slogan, Live Lively Square Dance. For more information about my local club, click here and put a link to your club's website. All those kinds of things that automatically, every time you send an email to somebody, says, hey, this person that I got the email from is actively involved in square dancing and they love it. And if you provide a link, some of them might actually click on it. That's easy. You set it up, it happens. Facebook. Now there's a caution with Facebook. Facebook is a great place to tell your story, to tell the world about your club. The only problem that we have in the Facebook world is if you're just doing a post on your Facebook page, only your friends get to see it. And if you've been dancing for 20, 25 years, all of your friends either square dance or you've bugged the daylights out of them and they've said no, so they're not going to now. So if you're going to use Facebook as a means of recruiting, you're going to need to get into paid social media, meaning that you're going to get your message delivered to people who are not specifically friends of yours. All of that, how to do that, all that information is in the Call Our Lab Square Dance Marketing Manual. Business cards, event signage. This one's easy. Make a banner that's, one of these vinyl banners that you can put out by the road, and you put it out there every time your club is dancing. So that at least as drivers are driving by, they see a sign and they realize, oh, there's a square dance club that dances at Rockbrook Methodist Church. That's cool. I didn't know that. It just builds a little bit of awareness. So these are all things that have very little cost to them, if any, and we should be doing them all the time. Okay, so the whole idea of the marketing funnel is we want to take consumers up from a journey of knowing nothing about square dancing to loving it. So of those things that I mentioned on the previous page, this is where each one of those tactics affects the consumer in the marketing funnel. Elevator pitch, public exhibitions, activity listings, all of those things affect awareness. So that I use the example of a float in a parade, and the dancers didn't want to do it the next year because nobody came to class the previous year. The problem is they got confused on what their outcome should have been. That event is purely an event to help to raise the awareness of square dancing in the marketplace. It's not nearly enough impressions with enough message for that person that saw them come by on the float to connect square dancing with a need or a want that they have. It only drives some awareness that square dancing actually exists in their community. So they should be doing parades all the time. And actually, it's not that hard once you have all the stuff, the collar, the truck, the trailer. Once you have all of that stuff set up, it becomes pretty easy. You just got to go and do it. Consideration. So as we're moving down, again, many of these things help because consideration really comes when they start to connect what the square dance activity with a want or a need that they have. And maybe the need is, maybe they need exercise, but I know very few people that came to square dance lessons because they wanted to get exercise. They might have heard about it, but they came because they wanted social interaction. They wanted to dance and they wanted to have fun. And oh, by the way, a side effect was I also happened to get some good exercise in the process. Well, that's nice. But if it means connecting on the fact that square dancing is good exercise and they're looking for that, if they make that connection, they'll come. That's where they start to get into the consideration phase. Evaluation. I don't know how many of you do, but I don't buy a car without test driving it first. I usually fall in love with it. I still got to take it for a test drive. So that's what a lot of these dance parties, exhibitions, beginner events are all about. And if they visit your website, if any of them visit your website, they're in the consideration stage. Okay, when they get to making a purchase, there's really nothing to it. At that point, you've invited them enough. They've connected the dots that they're willing to come and try class. And then there's no marketing tactics for loyalty. This bottom part of the funnel. Advocacy is you folks on this call. You folks on this call love the square dance activity enough that you're willing to get out there and tell everybody about it. That's advocacy. So that's an example of how you take people from not knowing a doggone thing about square dancing to the point where they love it so much that they're willing to get out there and do the work to tell all their friends, which is where you folks are in the marketing funnel. All right. Brief thing about the Square Dance Marketing Manual. Square Dance Marketing Manual provides education about marketing fundamentals. And by the way, so I get credit for writing this. And to be fair, there were 6 members of the marketing committee that helped with some of the sections. I guess to also be fair, it's 91 pages. I wrote 72 of the 78. I don't know. I wrote about 80% of the manual because it's what I do for a living. It's easy for me to write it. I know this stuff. Okay. So the first part, the first several sections are education about marketing fundamentals. I guarantee you most people who get a copy of the marketing manual go, I want to do Facebook. They look in the index, find the Facebook section, flip to that and start reading. Please read the first half of the manual. It has all of the knowledge, all of the fundamentals, all of the principles about marketing, so that if you're going to use Facebook, you know how to use it, but you also know what to expect from it and what to say when you use it. All of these things work together. So please read the first part of the manual. Education about marketing fundamentals. Research about the state of our activity and an understanding of the general public's image and awareness. If you're going to do a marketing campaign, you should follow a defined marketing strategy elements. There's exercises for all of these: target demographics, benefits sought, competitive analysis, defining marketing challenges, and a position statement. That's all in the manual. It's in the first half of the manual. Brand management tactics, then the large list of how-tos, all kinds of tactics, everything from elevator pitch. And I get some people don't know what an elevator pitch is. That's okay. You don't have to. We'll tell you all about it. Recommendations, fundraising. There's about a dozen fundraising ideas in there. There's probably 300 of them floating around. I just picked about a dozen to put in there. Case studies. There are 3 clubs that I wrote about that went from almost extinct to very large successful clubs. And I have exactly what they did and how they did it. And it's all in there so that you can see their stories. And then resources. So if you need help, there are plenty of places to turn. I know everybody's pretty much familiar with Collar Lab, but you may not be familiar with the Collar Lab Foundation. It's an independent 501c3. It's managed by the same board of governors that are the board of governors of Collar Lab. but it is an independent entity from Caller Lab itself. We do lesson grants, caller education grants, Square Dance marketing grants. You can find it, just Google it, Caller Lab Foundation. Then Caller Lab itself, to start with, has the marketing committee, which I'm no longer the chairman of. I'm still very actively involved in it. The Caller Labs Grants Marketing Manual. If you need advice or recommendations, you need some help from somebody that's got a little more marketing background than you do, call the home office, talk to Teresa. She'll get you in touch with somebody from the marketing committee that can help you. And if you need face-to-face training, they'll help you with that. There are multiple marketing related education sessions from Caller Lab conventions that are available both on audio and video. And then there's now the Caller Lab knowledge base website, which Barry Clasper from Canada manages and created. And it has a whirlwind of articles about marketing, including lots of marketing training, as well as winning ways, which are success stories. You have the Alliance for Round, Traditional, and Square. We call it the Arts. They have a lot of marketing collateral material. They're the folks that developed the national logo and slogan. Actually, they asked permission from sorry, Gene, you can tell us when we come off of mute, but I know it was the son of one of the callers from your federation that created the logo, and the slogan actually came from me ultimately. And there's lots of reasons why Live Lively Square Dance is what was selected as the national slogan. And I say national, I'd call it worldwide. They have an Attabuck program. It's a fundraising program that I helped author a bunch of years ago. They have an education grant program, and there's a recruitment plan that I authored in 2005. So yes, my thumbprints are on a lot of this. And then the USDA has a lot of publications and education material. And finally, if you try all of those and you're not getting what you need and you need some help, there's me. My name's Mike Hogan. My email is mike.hogan@cox.net, and that is my personal cell phone number. You are welcome to call it at any time. So just to recap, a problem well stated is half solved. Who's the leadership? The leadership is you and me. What we can do is we can embrace change and modify our products so that our beginners stay. We can develop a plan to market square dancing to the public where we live. We can raise funds. We can aggressively pursue opportunities to dance in public so that we're growing awareness. We can create opportunities for non-dancers to sample our product through beginner dancers and parties. That's the consideration stage. Oops. We can make learning to dance easy and readily available. So one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein: vision without action is hallucination. So I beg of you, well, first I thank you all for being here, and I beg of you to follow the lead. You've got a strong organization there. I know they've done a lot of work, and so please don't just listen, please take action. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mike. I only got one question through text,
Okay.
and that was, should we be asking if new people have had vaccine before or when they come for lessons?
I do not work for the CDC or your state and local governments, nor am I a doctor. And I've heard this debate. I believe that if you are, it's almost too early to answer that question. I think if I were teaching classes right now, I would absolutely follow some strict guidelines. It might be difficult to teach right now, but I would absolutely follow some strict guidelines. Once we see a high percentage of vaccinations, when we start seeing vaccinations that are in the 70–80% world. I think at that point, it almost negates the need to ask the question. But I would tell clubs that if they're concerned about any kind of potential liability because someone with the disease, with the virus came in and someone went home with it, then it's fair to ask that question. At the same time, I think right now, if you're doing things like taking temperatures when people come in, if you're making sure that everybody understands that they are taking a risk, that masks are being worn, you're not going to be able to keep them from touching hands with each other. You can't square dance that way. So right now, yes, when we get to 70–80% vaccination and what they call herd immunity, then I don't think it's necessary. I also don't believe, and of course you're asking me to predict a little bit of the future, but I don't believe that you're asking a question that is out of bounds. If it makes everyone coming to the class or your dances feel better, if only people who have had the vaccination are being allowed in, so be it. So I don't have a clear-cut answer to that question. I think it's up to the club's management to decide which way they want to go. Clearly, right now, we have to absolutely be on a very safe and cautious side. I think when we get to herd immunity and massive vaccination percentages, then I think we don't need to. It's just like we've never asked anybody, did you get your flu shot or didn't you get your flu shot? When we get to that state, I don't think we need to ask any more. But right now we need to be very safe. That's the best I can answer that question.
Okay, Ken Shirt from Regina has a question for you.
Okay,
Mike.
hi Ken.
Hi, Mike. We're a plus club,
Okay,
and we have a particular problem, or I have a particular problem applying I agree with everything you said, by the way, but
thanks.
here we don't have a plus teach program that takes dancers from 0 to plus.
Okay,
We start with mainstream dancers who already want to go the next step.
okay,
And we use the Color Lab teach syllabus, but
okay.
our new dancers are dancing right from week 1. We don't even do any plus week 1. We start week 2 with 1 or 2 figures a week through the Color Lab syllabus. So
Okay.
they're dancing all the time.
Okay.
The question I have is if we wanted to do anything beyond simply recruiting mainstream dancers out of the local mainstream club, which of course we're totally dependent on for our lifeline, what can we do to I guess, build that base?
So I'm a firm believer that plus clubs have no business giving beginner lessons.
I agree, 100%.
All right. So the challenge with the plus club is, yeah, your livelihood of your club is coming from people who are moving up the staircase, right?
Yes, we're the middle and upper tier of that pyramid.
Right. And at this point, that group to which you need to draw from is really pretty small. And they're not getting more people. What I would love to do, and I suggested this to a plus club in California, and they actually gave some serious thought to it. I don't know what they did because they've never gotten back to me with their final decision. But so I'm trying to understand exactly your system. Let me give you Omaha's system. Omaha has 6 mainstream clubs and 1 plus club. Now, mainstream is the entry program. So in your market, are most of the clubs mainstream clubs and then you have a plus club?
We only have 1 mainstream club left in the city, and they're thriving.
Right.
They're doing very well. And then our plus club, and we're the only one for many miles around. In fact, I don't know if we have any more plus clubs left in the province, to be honest.
Okay. So
and we're growing as well, not hugely, but we're getting bigger, not smaller.
but you're doing okay. Good. And your one and only mainstream club near you is doing well.
Yes, they have been doing very well over the last 5 or 6 years at least.
Good. Well, so all of that sounds great. What I would love to see happen in your area is that additional either SSD or mainstream clubs get started, so that instead of that one, and I know you're the plus club, but that if that one mainstream club is offering class once a year, they need to offer more times than that. Whatever they're doing to be successful in growing their numbers, keep repeating it. It would be nice to see, and I don't know the population base, but it would be nice to see a few more clubs come along that are also either dancing SSD. I prefer SSD, but SSD or mainstream, so that that base that you're drawing from for your plus club is growing larger. That means it's going to take some time though, because I don't want all, this is just me. I don't want all of those new people to be coming in and immediately get through mainstream and start getting recruited into your plus class. I
No.
want those people to come in and have some time to dance. Your club will be okay, unless where you'll have a problem is if every other caller in your area decides they're going to start a plus club as well. And now you've got as many plus clubs as mainstream clubs. And then the funnel of all of the plus clubs trying to pull those mainstream dancers up to support them is like a tornado. And instead of doing good work, it does bad work. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question or if I totally understand the question. What I would like to see in your market is for additional clubs to be started at the entry program and let them get stronger. And from that then bigger base, remember the triangle, from that bigger base, now you've really got the opportunity for your club to be successful by the natural gravitation of people who have fallen in love with it and then want more. Because when they want more, now you're the option for them.
So as far as what we might do in the Plus Club, then your suggestion would be to get involved in marketing that helps the mainstream club, and or getting perhaps some SSD club, one or more SSD clubs going.
Yes. So what I suggested to the club in California that's Dancing Plus is that they should start their own SSD club. And they were
Okay.
like, well, how does that help our plus club? Well, here's how it helps your plus club. There's no reason why I'll use ABC squares and rounds instead of ABC tire and break. There's no reason why ABC square and rounds can't have a plus club that's called ABC square and rounds and an SSD club that's called ABC square and rounds. There's no reason why they can't have two different programs that their club offers. The focus needs to be getting a big base of people in that SSD program. And until there's enough time on the dance floor of those dancers that they naturally gravitate to the next program, that they at least have the benefit of a mutual treasury to support both dance programs that their club puts on.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Any
asking.
other questions for Mike? Okay, I will,
I saw one.
yes, somebody said, what is an SSD club, please?
Okay. So SSD right now is I guess I'll call it an experimental teaching program. Jerry Story was kind of the guy that headed up the idea, but here's what SSD is. SSD is a 50 call list that's made up of calls primarily from the basic program, a few calls from the mainstream program, and a few calls from the basic program aren't on it. So it's a little bit different. It's a different list, but that list comes with already thought out, choreographed, or written out choreography, information on how to on teach programs, what to teach each night, choreography to use when you teach it. And the overlying emphasis on the program is not to go to the degree of expertise where everybody can do every call from every formation. It does a nice job of laying up basic what we call standard application in the caller world, movements and figures where you can get wind in the dancers' faces early and let them dance. And it's built on the principle that it's not a program that you're supposed to just naturally draw people into the next program. So it's not mainstream, it's not basic, it's short like the basic program, but it doesn't have all the basic calls. It has a few of the fun mainstream calls mixed in to give you more wind in the face stuff. And all you got to do to find out a bunch more about it is one of two things. You can either contact the Caller Lab home office, and that's really easy. Just go to callerlab.org and you'll be able to find all the contact information. The other thing you can very easily do is you can do a Google search of SSD Square Dance. It stands for Social Square Dance, but you can just Google SSD Square Dance or Social Square Dance, and it'll find you links to be able to get all kinds of information. The website that Barry runs, the knowledge base, has all kinds of information on it there. And also there's a huge Facebook group dedicated to SSD. If you're on Facebook, you can go to you can look up SSD as a group and ask to join. They're getting like 10 or 12 new members every day. And so you can educate yourself on what it is. It's basically a 12-week program that allows new dancers to come in, learn to dance quickly, not have to worry about having lots of responsibilities, not have to worry about being recruited up to whatever the next program is. Gives them a chance to essentially get what they want, which is to come, take a few lessons, start dancing, be entertained, and have fun. That's what it is. So do a little homework. It's out there.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions? Okay, now I've had a number of people ask about the presentation being posted online. I will post it online. I'm going to put it on our BC Federation events calendar under each date. So Thursday's presentation will be on Thursday and today's will be under today. I'm going to try and get it done today. I make no promises. I will try. So maybe start looking tomorrow, see if I've done it. I've posted the link to our calendar on there. I've also posted in the chat the marketing manual, the Caller Lab marketing manual that you can download through the chat, and the information about our Thursday marketing meetings. Other than that, Brian Elmer would like to, oh, sorry, there's a question. Gary Dodds.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Gary.
Quick question. When you read the introduction of the SSD program, it specifies that it is a standalone program and not intended to be a lead into mainstream or other programs. Our
Correct.
area is primarily mainstream. We have had a problem. Some of our callers have been teaching their newer dancers the SSD or the Club 50 or some of these others. Then they let them come out to mainstream dance.
That's a problem.
As a caller, I've done my full, I follow a different teaching program, but I still cover the full mainstream program. They come out to our club dance, mainstream, and I'll call a call and they'll stand there and look at me because they haven't been taught it. So for a mainstream area, and it seems to be in conflict to what the SSD idea is, we have a problem. We have dancers now quitting their mainstream clubs, coming to my Plus Club because they're tired of all these new dancers not being taught fully and breaking down all the time. How do we deal with that?
So what you just said perfectly exemplifies what I'm talking about running your business, running square dancing like a business. So these dancers who have quit the mainstream clubs and just moved on to the Plus Club because they can't tolerate the new dancers who aren't as adequate on the dance floor as them. If that's the case, they need to move to the Plus Club. That's poison on the floor as far as those new dancers are concerned. That new dancer does not know if they know SSD or basic or mainstream. They took a class. At the end of the class, the instructor said, "Go dance." They went to dance and were immediately met with negativism from other dancers that they'd never met before. It's no wonder that those people in a heartbeat would say, "I'm not for this. I didn't decide to take a class so that I could be criticized the first time that I get out on the dance floor." You're right, Gary. You have a problem. Now, let me tell you about how to address that problem. If you have callers who are teaching the SSD program or the Club 50 program, which was a tiny little derivative from SSD, and those callers are graduating those people at SSD program, and they either one of two things. They've either somehow let them know about the mainstream clubs that are dancing in the area and didn't educate the SSD dancer to understand that that's a club that dances a lot more calls than you do. You don't know those. Don't go there. I hate to say don't go there, but don't go there. What caller would graduate their mainstream class and then immediately tell them about the Plus Club that dances next Saturday? Go ahead and go. That's terrible. So there needs to be some training on the caller level about these different programs. The idea of SSD, if that's what they're doing, is these people learn this program and they dance at this program. They don't dance mainstream. They don't dance plus. They dance SSD. They shouldn't be going to mainstream clubs. They shouldn't even know about mainstream clubs. The reason that they probably know about mainstream clubs is, one, they could find it if they researched it on the internet, right? So that information is out there. But the other way they know about it is that the people that are coming in, I think you call it something different in Canada, but we call it square angels. Dancers that come to help with lessons. Night 3 of beginner class, they're already telling them about their mainstream club and recruiting them to come and dance with them. And those dancers don't understand that we're not teaching them the calls that your club dances. So you can't invite them to your club because they won't be able to dance and they'll immediately be turned off and they'll leave. That is a real problem. It does require some education both on the caller level and on the dancer level. If I'm teaching SSD and I see anything even close to that happening, I'm not letting any of those angels from other clubs come in and help with my class. Stay away from them. Let them learn, let them dance, let them fall in love with the activity. And then when they want to, they need to understand that there's another 19-ish calls that they don't know yet that are going to be called at that dance. So you're not going to be able to go there and feel comfortable. That's educating your current dancers and your current callers as well as your beginners. It's going to be a challenge. That's why the idea initially is that it's a standalone program, meaning they don't necessarily, that whole SSD group doesn't need to, and we don't want them for the first 2 or 3 years to even interact with our mainstream clubs or our plus clubs. Now that's hard for a plus club to understand because they're dying for people in some places. They're like, oh no, we got to have more. I got to have more people or my club's going to fail.
Okay.
That's your problem, Gary. It is a problem, and it's going to take some education. The callers that are teaching your SSD programs, those callers are the #1 person in your market responsible for that education. Okay.
Okay, I have another question here. It says, we have been told to avoid elderly demo situations as that makes square dancing look like it's for older folks. Should we then decline the requests?
So we have this lady that is in my home club named Dolores. And I broke Dolores's heart, which is the last thing on earth that I want to do. Because I said, if we want to recruit younger dancers, we need to put our younger dancers in front of them. We're not going to recruit a 55-year-old by putting a square of 75-year-olds in front of them. So that's a challenge now. 20 years ago, we probably had enough in that 50 to 65-year group that we could put squares of 50-year-olds onto floats and put that in front of people. So should you decline? I think you have to take a look at who the audience is that's going to be watching the exhibition. Because if the audience that's going to be watching the exhibition is 30 and 40-year-olds, you might as well decline, because if all you can put in front of them is a square of 75-year-olds, it's not going to work. You're going to get nothing out of it. The only thing you're going to accomplish. That's okay, Gene. The only thing that you're going to accomplish is convincing the 30 to 40-year-olds that square dancing is for seniors, and it doesn't fit. It's not a good fit for them. So you're not going to accomplish anything by it. So I think you have to look a little bit at who the audience is. You also have to look at who you can put, we'll call it, on your float, whether it's, an on the ground exhibition or wherever it is. I like the idea of putting a blend together. I don't mind having a couple that's 75 years old dancing. If I've got another couple that's 60, and I have a teenage couple, so that I've got a blend. Ultimately, when you're marketing, you want to try to match the demographic that you're marketing to the best that you can. And then in the media business, we try to market to, and please everybody, just take this for what it is, because it is the media business. When we do a television commercial that's marketing skin cleanser cream to eliminate wrinkles and all that kind of stuff, we're marketing that to people with wrinkles, and we're using models that don't have wrinkles, right? So when you think about it that way, even if we're marketing, even if the primarily group of dancers or of people that are watching your exhibition are in their 60s, if you can get 50-year-olds on your float, it's going to do you a favor. You don't need to put teenagers on it. So you have to analyze who it is that you're going to be dancing in front of. And if putting a square of 75-year-olds means that they're going to interpret square dancing as only for seniors, and that's a bad thing, then you don't do the exhibition.
Okay, Nancy and Peter Slynn from Burnaby, did you have a question still?
Not so much a question, but a comment. I learned to square dance in 1979 at a club level.
Okay.
I, like most dancers at that time, came at it after graduating from high school, starting my first year at university, and finding out that this activity that I had absolutely fallen in love with was available at a club level. And the way our club at that time was handled was that it started at 6:30 p.m. for the beginners. So those of us who supposedly had never danced before, or who only came from a high school phys ed class, could go and learn the beginning moves. At 7:15, they would come and have the more advanced dancers come and join the group, and we would have about a 45-minute social dance using the moves the caller had taught those beginners, starting at 6:30, so that
Okay.
everybody got to dance.
Okay.
Then,
so far, I'm in love with this.
So then at 8 o'clock or whatever it was, that's when the mainstream and plus dancers would then be on the floor, and the procedure would repeat itself. By the mainstream dancers would be taught the mainstream moves, with the plus dancers angeling, and then there would be a social time, and the last half hour of the club was a plus dance and teach.
Okay.
Now, the problem I've noticed over the last 40 years is now we still do the phys ed program. Occasionally, as in the Fraser Valley Square and Round Dance Association, there are 2 teen clubs. But after the teen club, there is nothing except an adult club. Now, the only singles club that these teens might consider joining is, as you said, an older club.
Okay.
And has a reputation, unfortunately, for people wanting to pick up partners at it. There's nothing at the university level anymore.
Okay.
And as you said, I don't even think there is a beginner's class anymore. There's a
Okay.
few mainstream clubs. Most of them are plus, advanced, and challenge.
Right.
We're losing the young people. And the story is, oh, well, you know, they're too busy raising their families to square dance, which is a bunch of kafooey. So I'm just throwing that out there because I think the gentleman from Victoria raised a point that could be dealt with. But I also wanted to say, before I go off my soapbox, Mike, you did a fabulous job, and I really appreciate everything you've shared with us today. Thank you for putting in all that hard work, taking the time to teach us. It's been a very valuable afternoon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So let me just give you some comment on what you just said. So I think, and I have seen it, this SSD program has been very well received from younger people. They are, the younger you get, the more instant gratificationalist you are. And so they get together. They, of course, learn quickly, but they're about dancing to the beat of the music and motion as much as they are about any kind of choreography. And so, but where I've seen it successful with younger groups, and this actually fits the SSD mode, if you think about it, as Gary said, as a standalone. If you can get high school, college, young adult groups of I call them kids. My youngest is 27 years old, so I'll call them kids. If you can get a big enough group of them together, they'll dance together, they'll enjoy each other, and they'll recruit their friends in a heartbeat. And the program allows for you to have more people just because they're having fun. And then from there, you know, I don't know how we get from that group that's from 18 to 30. I don't know where we get the 30 to 50 group from, but the philosophy could be the same. Most clubs, because of that fit piece, the members of the club, for the most part, are members of that club because most of the members of that club are in their age demographics, in their kind of their comfort zone. Not always. We certainly have some clubs that have, you know, almost all of them are 70, and there's some grandchildren that are members of the club. You always have some one-offs, but generally speaking, the SSD program could be huge for that younger group, but you got to start them as their own group. And if you get them going and you've got a good leader, that group doesn't need to go dance with your mainstream clubs or your plus clubs. They got their own group, they got their own dance halls, and that base will build. And in time, if they love the activity, they'll eventually go, what else is there? And at that time, it's the time that they start to move into the mainstream and plus program. So that's my comment on that, Nancy. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, I have two more with questions. If you can keep them short, I'm going to make these the last two questions because Brian Elmer still would like.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Brian Elmer wants to speak too. So I'm going to get. I think Ken, you had your hand up first. So
I can.
Thanks, Mike. Correct me on this one. What I'm hearing you not say so far is, my takeaway is that for us old guys, who, by the way, in my case, we got to be the 20, 30-year-olds that became 30, 40-year-olds. So that's where they come from. We started in '69. For us old guys, starting with or, you know, trying to promote this more right now, we're promoting it probably for a generation that's beyond where we're even going to be dancing. You're talking, I think, about people having to take a longer term view of this. We're not, the folks we want to recruit are in instant gratification mode, but in our case, it's going to be far from that. Correct?
Yes.
That's a nice quick answer. Good for you.
okay, I like that one. Sorry, Townsend's from Victoria. That's our last question.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Mike. It was excellent. It
Thank you.
hit the nail right on the head. And Gary, as you were talking to, is our caller, and we love him, but we need to get all the callers in the area on the same page. That's our problem. So I think this presentation that you've done was absolutely excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Now Brian would like to speak, and there you go, Brian.
Yes, thank you. Mike, that was wonderful, as always. It's interesting, the questions that come up after your presentation. I think it's just wonderful that we're really starting to think seriously about especially the possibilities and some of the problems. But what, apart from a really final thank you, Mike, for this wonderful session and the one on Thursday, I wanted to let participants in this session know a little bit about what we're planning coming up. Every Thursday at 1 Pacific Daylight, we're going to do something on some topic. And right now, Gene and I have set up the image of our recreation for this Thursday at 1. And the next Thursday, we're thinking of social media, to really take a closer look at social media. And those of you in British Columbia know that the BC Square and Round Dance Federation for many years now has been buying paid advertising on Facebook, highly targeted to the city, the club, the target group the club wants to attract. So we can talk about that a bit too. But I've just prepared a few. This isn't going to be too long. Just a teaser. I worked in broadcasting for 40 years, and we did teasers, especially in the news. Kept teasing you through the news hour to get you to hang on. And then the dog story or the cat story is the last 5 minutes. But we've got you to watch all those commercials for the full hour. Anyway, let me see if I can bring this up as a starter. I think I can too. So again, on Thursday, we're going to look at image, square, round, clog, contra dancing. And let me see, I did put some notes down here just to make sure I didn't miss something important. But yeah, the Federation, the BC Federation has member clubs enjoying these dance forms. For those of you in BC, we do have a contra dance club in Kelowna, the city that I'm close to. I'm in West Kelowna. So continuing on with this image thing, this is just some quick notes from back in 2005. Again, this is just meant to be a teaser here, so I was going to throw this at you. So we had a marketing workshop in 2005 in Abbotsford when the festival was held there. The presenter was Jim Hensley. He conducted research for Collar Lab. And Mike, if you still got your mic open, what was the name of the company that Jim headed up as head researcher?
Well, so Collar Lab did some research. Jim didn't actually head this up. He connected us with the company. The company is called Starworks, and they did both an image and an awareness research project, which they did focus groups in 3 major markets and 3 focus groups. Two of those focus groups were of current square dancers. No, I'm sorry. One was of current square dancers, and the other 2 were of people in that kind of 40 to 60 year age group. That was kind of the demographic target, and did focus research on their image and awareness of the square dance activity, and it was very enlightening.
Okay, so that I'll bring that up again here then. So some of the initial findings, it was identified there's a problem in that square dancing is the most politically correct, healthy social activity in the world, but we're not willing to make the marketing changes necessary for this cycle and this product. So then research revealed, as Mike has alluded to with all those focus groups, We've badly underestimated the image issue we have. Now, this is going back to 2005 and earlier when the report came out in 2000. I don't think it's changed too much, but the focus group surveyed thought that square dancing was done, I get this, out in the country in a barn with fiddle music with the ladies dressed in puffy clothing. And those surveyed also thought, this is really interesting, that square dancing was fun, good for you, and that they would probably try it when they were old enough. Anyway, again, this is a teaser. Let me move on.
The interjection is that I mentioned that the Color Lab Square Dance Marketing Manual has a couple sections on awareness and image. It has the exact outtakes from that research in the manual.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I suggest that one of the earliest influences on the public that left a negative image about square dancing was this character, Bugs Bunny. What was it? One of the other characters, Elmer Fudd, he said that quasi wabbit, he called him. So here's Bugs fiddling for two elderly gentlemen. The thing of note is this is a 1950 animation created by Warner Brothers cartoonists. So here in this shot again, Bugs is playing fiddle while two elderly gentlemen are dancing. Now the name of the cartoon was Hillbilly Hare. Okay, so Bugs continues to play for them. Here they are on the dance floor, whooping it up. Now you're soaking up the image here, I gather. And Bugs lured them, by the way, by putting on a feminine demure. So that's why they lipstick and the collar there. And then, of course, here Bugs promenaded them out to the hay baler machine. Of course, they jumped in and came out the other end as squares. So here they are. So on Thursday, we're going to look at the actual cartoon. And I've got a little expose that I ran into this impression of this negative impression from the Bugs Bunny cartoon of 1950 when I went into a school to teach kids. Moving on here, this is round dancing. The indigenous community has their own kind of round dancing, and it's a tradition that comes from the Cree Indians. Next shot, we've got, I'm sorry, the shot's a little smaller. So this is round dancing again, where the indigenous folks are in traditional attire. So we've got some image talking to do about round dancing. I really like calling it choreographed round dancing set to live cues, but we can talk about that more on Thursday. Now, what would this be? Yes, they're wooden clogs, and they probably represent what people think, what the public thinks is clog dancing. You'd clog dance in those. Whereas in actual reality, this is a true modern day clogging shoe with taps at the toe and the heel. So that is surely an issue for the clog dance community, and I hope we can have some of their leaders on the session. I'm just going to flip ahead. This is a clog dance floor here, and I'm sorry, a contra dance floor, and it looks so similar to square dancing. I think when we do our promotions, we really need to identify the difference between contra and square dance. What do we got next? Just a conclusion that the Zoom session on image will be Thursday, March 25, 1 Pacific Daylight Time. What's that? In Eastern, that's 4 Eastern Daylight. And as Jean has mentioned, we're using the same Zoom link. So that's my 2 bits. I hope I have you folks with me, and of course, Jean will be with us, and that we can really get into a discussion, and you can share your experiences as well. Again, Mike, thank you. This has been great.
Okay, Mike, thank you. A really good program. We appreciate it. I thank everyone who's joined us, and I hope you will join us on Thursday meetings, working as a group. we can go a long way. Yvonne?
Will we be having the same ID number?
Yes,
Thursday?
yes.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
been
exactly
wonderful.
this. Yeah, exactly the same login information. Like I said, join us, share your information. If you want your voice heard, you need to be at these meetings. It doesn't do any good to over coffee talk about how you don't like this or how you like that, because we don't hear it. The BC Federation is here to help you. Therefore, come and help us. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great week. What's left of the weekend.